And so we come to part 7 of a culture of breaking generational curses. And I will harken back to something I said before, quoting the Lord of the Rings, Lady Galadriel. She says, in order to defeat the darkness, we do not need strength, we need light. Okay. Um, and what was she also talking about, right? So in this, the rings of power, right? Three rings are made for dwarves and the elves, and who's the third ring for? Well, three rings are made for the elves. Sorry. Yes, three rings are made for the elves. Okay. Rings of power. The power to basically call the forces of nature and creation to your aid, right? But who created the rings? It was Sauron, right? Because he had an agenda. And that agenda actually was to enslave everyone, including the elves, to his influence, to be under his influence, you know? And like, um, and I think that's why Galadriel, and it also says that the ring maker dude, he also had this epiphany. And I don't know if he told Galadriel or she also had the same intuitive insight after her fighting with Sauron, is that she's basically saying they didn't need the rings. If their consciousness had been right, if the elves had been of a right consciousness, their consciousness would have been enough to protect them against Sauron's darkness. It would have been strength enough. They wouldn't have needed the rings. Okay. So it's the same thing with us as human beings. There's no amount, and there's some people out there, dodgy ass people, who are going to tell you that the only way to defeat the system is to take up arms. Yes. You heard me right. Who's taking up arms against the United States military? The United States military has more nuclear bombs than the whole planet combined. You're going to take up arms against them, against NATO. You're going to take up arms against the South African government, the South African army, the SANDF, and the police. These people are spreading disinformation and they know what they're doing. I don't know who they serve, but anyway. If your consciousness is correct, you are able to command reality, to serve your needs. And the greatest need we have as humans is spiritual freedom on this planet, because this planet is for us. The earth called us. She said, you can come here. Others came and due to their power, their perceived power over us, then imposed their will on this planet. They hijacked this planet and they hijacked the purpose of this planet. Okay. So, similarly, there is a divine will, which is the free will of the earth, of Tiamat, that has been undermined, which we can work with her to reestablish, and also establish our own free will of what we want to experience, what we would prefer to be the reality on planet Earth. Because we're not enjoying this. We're not. It's like farm animals that are being exploited. Yes, some of them might have a good time of it because they've got nice owners. But ultimately, they just want to be free to live. And then someone will be like, oh, but they're going to get eaten by predators. Yeah, and we're all going to die too as well. We're going to be eaten by that predator called death. You know what I'm saying? So life is not infinite in these physical bodies on this planet, So I think that, this is why it's important to study ancient history. It's important to study ancient history because it will give you information about the battle of the Titans and the gods. It'll give you information about the nature of Ragnarok, where the primordial forces are going to reestablish themselves. It's like the coming of the Christ, right? The return of the Christ, okay? He is not going to come back and be a nanny for human beings whose consciousness is not right. But he is going to come back to be a participant, a co-creator with conscious human beings of the type of world that they would prefer to live in, that enhances the potential for their souls to evolve through their experience on the earth plane. And it's important that souls are able to use this earth plane to evolve, because when your soul, your spirit evolves, it adds to the harmony of the creation, right? So I think also as human beings, another thing which is very important is we need to understand that just because we're small, just because we have short lifespans, just because we are frail, just because we don't use 100% of our brain, just because we are not acquainted with our spiritual abilities, the ones that Jesus said, these things and more shall you do, just because we're not vibing there, it doesn't mean we are powerless. It doesn't mean that we don't have the capacity to become the creators of the reality that we want. It doesn't mean that we are not the prime creators of our reality. It's like, and I think the earth, in her wisdom, has all these other beings here, all these other animals here that are very small. Some of them are like tiny. I mean, I think there's one on my screen and it's tiny. It's like smaller than a grain of rice, and yet it's alive. It has a heartbeat, it has lungs, it has an exoskeleton, it reproduces, right? So I had this experience once a few years ago, I think it was 2019, where I opened the front door and there was this little kingfisher on the floor, and now it was sleeping, so it had closed its eyes, but I realized that. I just thought it was blind or something, because it was like a hairless membrane over its eyes, and it was like swaying back and forth like this, and I thought, oh my God, this thing is dying. So I found a friend of mine who is very knowledgeable about birds, and I was like, there's a baby kingfisher here and it looks like it's dying. And he's like, no. So I explained, it's rocking back and forth and it's got this weird film over its eyes. Like, oh no. He's like, no, it's sleeping. It's probably a fledgling that's come out of the nest and it's now just sleeping. Don't worry, So before I found him, I tried to feed it some sugar water because I thought maybe it was dying. Then it started flapping and it woke up and it freaked out, and I freaked out, and I found him. And then he's like, no, don't worry. Anyway, so I left to get along with my day's business. And I saw it because I went back inside to get ready, because I'd gone outside to do something in the car. That's when I found it. And then I went back inside to get ready, and then I left. And as I was driving away, I was backing out of the driveway. I saw it. It had woken up and it was standing there outside, like on the stoop. And it was looking at the sky. And you can see this thing is like, it's contemplating its existence. It's contemplating this massive sky that it's now going to fly into, And then when I came back, it was gone. I honestly thought this thing was going to be dead or something, but it was gone. And I think it took flight. Tiny little kingfisher, like this big. So if this kingfisher can, against all odds, have the courage and the faith to take to the sky, then we human beings, even if we are fighting against powers way beyond our comprehension, with lifespans that dwarf ours, with knowledge of the human psyche, which allows them to manipulate us, with all sorts of powers, spiritual powers, emotional powers, intellectual powers, physical powers that we don't have, even though that might be who it is that we need to contend with. I believe that the earth shows us through these tiny little beings who we live on this planet with, that if they can do it, if they can take on the world and take on life with courage, we too can take on life with the courage that we need to have to break generational curses and undermine these destructive cultural norms that keep us completely stuck in our ego, undermining the soul's reason for being here, which keep us, because we're so stuck in our ego, divided from each other based on the different ego expressions that people are having, that keep us shackled to, because of the ego immersement, shackled to material comfort. I think we can take these systems on and pave the way for the next generations to continue the fight until we are able to create the world that we want for ourselves and for all of humanity and for all the earthlings that we share this beautiful planet with, and for the planet herself. Thank you.